It is 40 degrees below zero, and somewhere in the frozen north, a child is sleeping, not beside a fire. There is no fire. Outside the small shelter, the wind moves like something alive, hunting for warmth, tearing it away from anything foolish enough to stand still. Inside, the child's breath rises and freezes into tiny crystals on the low ceiling above her face. The walls around her are made of nothing but snow. And yet, when morning comes and the pale sun finally touches the horizon, she is still warm. She is still breathing. She is still alive. For thousands of years, across the frozen forests, the windswept plains, and the buried valleys of North America, this happened every single winter night, in shelters where no flame ever burned. So how did they do it? How did entire communities survive the cruelest winters on Earth, when fire was not always an option? The answer is not what most people expect. It was not a roaring fire. It was not thick stone walls. It was not endless piles of wood. In fact, their greatest source of warmth was something so quiet, so hidden, that modern science is only now beginning to understand it. Because here is the truth they learned long before we did. The hardest part of surviving winter was never creating heat. The hardest part was keeping it. Their real enemy was never the cold itself. It was waste. They did not fight the winter to force warmth into the world. They learned, instead, to never let their own warmth escape. And the secret that kept that sleeping child alive through the darkest night was lying quietly, right beneath her. To understand that secret, you first have to change the way you see the snow. To most of us, snow means danger. It means cold, exposure, the slow and quiet end of anyone caught unprepared. But to the people who lived here, snow was something else entirely. It was a blanket. Fresh snow is almost nothing but air. Tiny pockets of it, trapped between countless frozen crystals. And that trapped air is one of the finest insulators in the natural world. So, instead of fighting the snow, they learned to build with it, shaping drifts and packing walls that held their warmth inside while the killing wind stayed out. And where the snow alone was not enough, they turned to the earth. Just below the frozen surface, the ground holds a steadier, gentler temperature than the air above it, and they knew this. Across the plains, families dug their homes halfway into the soil, raising earth lodges and pit houses whose thick walls soaked up warmth by day and released it slowly through the night. In the far north, Athabascan peoples built shelters that held against 40 degrees below zero. On the open plains, the cone of the tipi was angled to cut the wind. Nothing about these homes was an accident. They faced their doorways away from the wind, set their camps on high ground so the freezing air could drain into the valleys below, and built entrances low so the coldest air sank and stayed beneath them while they slept. Long before modern architects gave it a name and called it passive design, these builders had already mastered it. And yet, even the finest shelter was useless without one more thing: a source of heat. And that source did not come from wood. The source of heat was the human body itself. Every person carried a fire inside them, a quiet furnace that never stopped burning, fueled by nothing more than the food they ate and the blood in their veins. The challenge was never to make more of that heat. It was to keep it from slipping away. So they dressed in layers, trapping warm air against the skin the way snow trapped it in its walls. And above all, they stayed dry, because damp clothing pulls warmth from the body faster than the cold air ever could. They lined their footwear with moss and dried grass, and they moved with care, never letting themselves sweat, because sweat freezes, and frozen sweat can kill. But the most powerful warmth of all came after dark, when the family lay down together. Beneath a single shared hide, parents and children pressed close, their bodies pooling heat into one another until the small space glowed with life. Survival here was never a solitary act. It was something people did for each other. And to keep those inner fires burning, they ate for heat. Winter meals were rich and dense, heavy with fat and protein, and their greatest invention was pemmican, a simple blend of dried meat, rendered fat, and crushed berries that could last for months. A single handful, no bigger than a fist, could carry a hunter through an entire day in a storm. The lightest food they made was also the most enduring fuel. They understood something we have nearly forgotten. The most reliable fire is not always the one you can see. Sometimes it burns quietly, inside the ones you prepared. And what they wore was not simply clothing, it was engineered. Every garment was built on the same principle as their shelters: thin layers holding warm air between them, soft tanned leather that stayed supple even in the deepest cold, hoods that sealed in the heat escaping from the head, and fitted sleeves that shut the wind out at the wrists. Each layer let moisture escape while holding warmth in, the same careful balance that today's finest outdoor gear still chases. What modern companies now achieve with synthetic fabrics and laboratories, these craftspeople accomplished with nothing but what the land had given them. And yet, the truth is that their greatest weapon against winter was never worn on the body at all. It was carried in the mind. They understood that fear burns energy, while calm preserves it, that panic in the cold leads to reckless movement, wasted heat, and fatal mistakes. So, from the time they could walk, children learned to read the world around them, to watch the shifting clouds, the turning wind, the behavior of animals that sensed a storm before any human could. This knowledge was never written in books. It was carried in stories, passed from voice to voice around the shelter through the longest nights, one generation quietly handing wisdom to the next. And modern psychology confirms what they already knew, that in extreme cold, the calm mind survives far more often than the strong body. So when you picture that child, sleeping through 40 degrees below zero with no fire to keep her, and you ask yourself how she is still alive by morning, the answer was never a single thing. It was everything, and it was all around her. The snow was wrapped around her shelter, holding the wind at bay. The earth beneath her held its steady warmth, the hides above her sealed in every breath of heat, and beside her, the bodies of her family poured their own warmth into hers. In her belly was a handful of food built to burn slowly through the night, and in her mind, already, was the quiet calm she had learned from the people around her. She survived, not because of one clever trick, but because of all of it, woven together into a single, seamless act of living. An entire civilization, thousands of years of hard-won knowledge, held safely inside one child's winter night. And here is what should stop us. These are not lost secrets. The very same principles still save lives today. Search and rescue teams, Arctic researchers, and survival instructors around the world still teach them. Build your shelter before you seek your fire. Stay dry, break the wind, guard the heat you already have. We tend to believe that survival means conquering nature, forcing it to bend to our will, but these people understood the opposite. Survival was never about overpowering the world. It was about understanding it. Their strength came not from taking more, but from using wisely what little they had. And perhaps that is the warmth they truly left behind. Not a fire that burned bright and then faded into ash, but a way of seeing the world that still glows all these centuries later. Because the greatest mysteries of the past are not buried in time. They are waiting, quietly, to be understood. If this journey stayed with you, walk a little further with us into the forgotten corners of history, where the oldest questions are still waiting for their answers.